Welcome TCB faithful to yet another episode of the Runback, the Ninjutsu action-focused series that occasionally leaves the world of fighting games to ask the question, was this beat 'em up any good? This time we're going to try to discover if turtles truly fought with honor.
Turtles fight with honor!
Why'd he stop to shout that?
Licensed games. There's been literally a metric crap ton of them made to try to capitalize on a popular insert a thing, but none more often than an ever reliable children's TV series, and none more impactful in this field than the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Well, maybe E.T.
We're talking about a positive impact. Anyway, way back in the late 80s, early 90s, Turtle Mania was running wild and was at its peak. Arcades were still very much among the living, and Nintendo was still loved by everyone, instead of becoming a foster home for the Disney adults of gaming.
$80 for a digital keycard? Sign me up!
I don't think it's too much of a stretch to say that during this time, the Ninja Turtles were pretty much responsible for setting the standard for the beat-em-up genre by releasing some of the better praised games of that era, with Turtles in Time being regarded as one of the best beat-em-ups ever made.
And we missed all of it, because around this time your boys here at TCB were busy with the task of coming into existence. Pun intended.
Don't gross out the people, just say we were babies. Anyway, by the mid-90s, when we actually heard of the Turtles, the popularity of the IP has since cooled off, with the series not having any games during the jump to the early Pinnacle era of gaming. But we eventually learned of it through things like the amazing original TMNT film. That's probably still one of the greatest comic book adaptations ever.
That movie was the real first thing we see from TMNT, and it blew us away. The fighting, the dark setting, the heavy street level action, it really shaped our vision for what the series was. So, needless to say, the childish nature of the 1987 cartoon didn't do much to satisfy our increasingly edgy 2000s brains. If we didn't hear some rap rock in our TMNT intro soon, then this franchise was dead.
So like some glorious angel on high comes a 2003 series to provide us exactly what we needed. This is what introduced us to and made us fans of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles by adapting some of those classic Mirage comic stories and giving them a modern coat of paint.
Much like Beast Wars with Transformers, this helped reinvent the series and revive it for a new generation of kids, which meant the return of the Turtles to the world of video games. And not wanting to leave any money on the table, Konami returned to the stores to take advantage of this resurgence.
So does the 2003 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles game have what it takes to protect the streets of New York City? Or is it just getting beat down by the Purple Dragons?
We're Team Crossbody, and was TMNT 2K3 any good?
Skipping stones.
Hey, hold on to your seats.
Shell shocker!
Now, given that this is a beat-em-up, a genre you think, given their history with video games, the Turtles will be able to slip right into like a well-worn bandana, especially since it's made by the very same company that put their games on the map in the first place, Konami.
But sadly, for reasons beyond our understanding, this game looks pretty decent on the surface, but dive even a couple of inches deeper and you'll start hitting some pretty strange design choices. Don't get me wrong, some of these issues are excusable and can be chalked up to early 3D growing pains, but others, well...
Okay, hold on. Let's at least start with one of the cooler things the game does, and that's bringing over scenes from the show to make up the bulk of the game's cutscenes.
Your path in life will not be an easy one. The outside world will not be a friendly place for you.
Believe it or not, this was actually a selling point for some games in the early 2000s, as TV on demand wasn't an idea ripe for abuse yet, with the only real option being to go to the store and hoping to pick up multiple DVDs of the thing you wanted. Now, that's a good thing if you just want to look at clips from the show. But if you're really looking for this game to help you understand the story of the first season of the 2003 series, then we're going to have a problem, because the way the game conveys its plot is just, I was trying to think of a better word of it, but it's atrocious, making it incredibly awkward for newcomers to the series.
Yeah, they butchered it pretty badly. So here's how it works. If you choose any of the 4 turtles, we all get the same opening. The monsters destroy their home, they get separated from Splinter, they go topside and end up fighting against the Purple Dragon gang, which ends with them saving April from Baxter Stockman. But if players choose Raph first, you get the same scenario, except now you get an additional cutscene introducing Casey Jones, with him actually explaining who the Purple Dragons are, as well as getting an exclusive boss fight against them. You'll completely miss out on this bit of story context if any of the other turtles are chosen over Raph. But don't worry though, the story will still continue as if the others had this cutscene and boss battle anyway. Now imagine being new and never having watched the series before picking up this game. You'll be totally confused on who these characters are. Sure, if you're used to the 87 series, you're not that much in the dark, but that doesn't help explain the characters who don't have a 1987 counterpart. So don't worry, you'll be joining the newcomers in the cloud of confusion too.
Because of these slight turtle-dependent routes, the game actually expects you to play through story mode a total of 4 times, once as every brother controlled by player 1, just to get the whole picture. I said player 1 for a reason. We'll get into that in a few. Now, I get what you're thinking. TCB was the problem. That's just replay value, right? And yeah, technically you'd be right, sure, but 90% of the story and stages are exactly the same for each playthrough, with only minor changes here and there, like each turtle getting one, and I mean one, exclusive boss fight. And it's not like the game is short either. Each playthrough is taking you at least 3 to 4 hours to finish. Now, to be fair, no one is forcing you to clear all 4 guys in one day or anything. It's just fucking stupid, but it's not a deal breaker of any kind. Luckily, the gameplay, more specifically the questionably botched co-op, is there to do the rest of the damage.
The problems with the gameplay don't become apparent right away. When you're jumping right in, everything seems okay enough, but in reality, the issues begin as soon as you enter the player 2 character select screen. And I'm not talking about the fact that the game is only 2 players. Sure, we're the only 2 playing anyway, and the only version of this game we ever played was the PS2 version. But the other consoles this released for, the Dreamcast, Xbox, and GameCube, all have 4 controller ports to take advantage of the fact that 4 players could be using all the turtles at once. But regardless of what version you play, TMNT is only 2 players.
Turtles count it on. 1, 2, 3, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2.
We've never played the sequels, but I know they do fix these issues, so we're not gonna harp on this any longer. This was definitely a poor choice overall, but it's ultimately a minor one compared to the actual problems within the game itself.
But first, let's go over the basics. Don't worry, it's super simple. The turtles have a dash, weak strikes that can lead to a basic combo, a slower, stronger attack, a running attack, a launcher, and a limited set of throwable shuriken, of which different types can be found while playing. And if you're playing co-op, a unique throw that isn't all that useful, as it's slow and both players have to set up this awkward pose next to each other in order to use it. I think the attack itself might have some invincibility frames on it, but it's really hard to tell. So yeah, although majestic as fuck, it's not worth the prep time to use. Now, that's not entirely everything you can do, as you unlock additional attacks as you go through the game, which is a pretty good excuse to talk about the game's awfully implemented co-op and how it handles its characters.
Once again, it begins right at the turtle selection screen. While it might seem totally normal to anyone who is just jumping in, there is a reason why the game defines player 2 as the assist. The campaign's progression is hard locked to player 1, meaning that once they're knocked out, they can't switch between the other turtles like you could in most well thought out beat 'em ups. The only time the first player can change characters is when replaying past stages, so you have to complete the game with whatever turtle you selected. Luckily, player 2 doesn't have such stupid limitations placed on them, as they can switch to any of the 3 remaining brothers after getting KO'd. But let's not celebrate, because being a second player comes settled with one of the game's biggest problems.
When hopping into the first level, both players are on the exact same playing field, with them virtually playing exactly the same in both abilities and general gameplay. There are very slight differences between the 4 turtles, and we'll get into that a little later, but there's nothing really making them completely unique at the most basic level. But that distance between the 2 players begins to widen as the game goes on. There are 5 main stages in the game, with 5 or 6 areas within each to be cleared, with each final area being designated to a boss fight. Between some stages are special stages that serve as training levels. Why wasn't the training level before stage 1? Well, don't let the name fool you, as the game doesn't bother itself with actually showing the players the ropes. Things like telling people that ending a weak combo at any point with a strong button will result in different finishing blows, all of which have different effects on the enemy, such as knockdowns and stuns, or that players can dash cancel out of attacks to make custom-ish combos, or even launching attacks can hit opponents off the ground, so you don't have to politely wait there for them to get up, are never explained. Don't get me wrong, they're not encouraged at all, and you can just mash through the entire game without never knowing these nuances with the combat system. But the very fact of knowing them would have been nice.
Speaking of launching attacks, it's not the only method of hitting down targets, as you can use the jumping attacks as well. Why didn't we mention the jumping attacks while breaking down the basics? Well, that's because it isn't. Master Splinter placed all these stupid floating boxes around that include the likes of home-destroying mousers and explosives to teach his favorite son that very move. But listen closely, it's only for his favorite son. Player 2 gets nothing.
Let's reiterate for the people in the back. Player 1, and exclusively Player 1, gets this super useful ability, while Player 2 can absolutely just go kick rocks apparently, as they go the entire game without it. And that's not the only thing Player 2 can go without, as there are 2 more training areas that only serves to power up Player 1 even further. Has anyone ever heard of this in any other game before? Essentially, Player 2 gets power crept out of their own co-op game as the campaign progresses, turning them from a partner to a handicap by its closing moments.
That is the case, unless it's your second playthrough, as whatever turtle you finish the campaign with can now be selected by Player 2.
That doesn't fix the problem, it just means Player 2 starts off the game significantly more powerful than Player 1, until the final stages where both players will officially be equal in power levels again. Then after you have 2 powered up characters, you just have to play like this until all of them are viable. So you're telling me that you have to play the game 4 times in total in order to have a fully powered up team of turtles.
Both players are essentially seesawing between who suck and who don't, and if you want to play 2 strong turtles, you're not making any progress. But hey, at least you have those slight story differences between them. Yeah, I can't make this out to be anything but bad.
You think?
I can understand if the game itself is actually fun to play, and it kinda is, but it gets tedious fast. Like within the same area fast, the combat really begins to drag. Areas can be completed in, let's say, around 5 minutes on average, but they feel like you're on these small segments for double that time. The enemies, while varied, aren't very engaging. They just show up in mobs and you fight everyone the exact same way every single time.
And while that's bad, it probably wouldn't be that big of an issue if the AI just wasn't so basic. They'll appear on screen and just stand there waiting for you to enter their cones of vision like it's a stealth game or something, and if it does dawn on them to be aggressive, they only have like 2 attacks each, and they aren't even that threatening unless they have the numbers advantage. They also have way too much health. So a typical mid to late game encounter is that a mob appears, you beat them with a full combo string, some will die, some are mostly knocked down. Player 2 sits there and waits for them to get up while Player 1 clears their side, and has to run over to Player 2 to help clean the rest of his guys out, because they're literally incapable of doing so in a speedy manner.
And that's another major problem with the combat. It's just super slow. The game will literally dangle an exit over your head as it sits there and throws what feels like 7 to 8 mobs of the exact same enemy type at you, back to back to back to back.
We quickly discovered that peak performance in this game is just rolling your eyes to the back of your head and just mindlessly mashing the attack buttons until everything dies, with you mumbling the word "still" after the 5th wave of enemies spawn in this exact same location. The game holds you hostage.
Don't forget the foot tech ninjas. The game loves doing this with those guys, repetitively spawning in 2 of them at a time, very slowly.
Oh god, the fucking foot tech ninjas in general are just the worst. They'll spawn onto the map, usually while we're dealing with a group of enemies already. They'll turn invisible, then they'll just camp out at a corner, staying completely still, waiting to be found, while we're slamming our heads up against the goddamn turtle barrier for about 3 seconds until one of us eventually blurts out, "Oh, I guess we missed a foot tech ninja. Let's go find where he settled down and is currently raising a family." It's annoying.
Nah, you wanna know what's really annoying? Let's talk about the boss fights.
Wait, we've been shitting on the game for a little while now. Maybe we should actually talk about things we like about it real quick. One of my favorite things about the Turtles during this era was definitely the look. Even when you ignored the later parts of the 87 series with those Red Sky seasons, the look of the Turtles was still pretty goofy. So I'm glad they took the look of them and essentially turned these guys into SWAT cats with their more bulky angular designs. And the game translates that look and atmosphere of the source material pretty faithfully. It isn't perfect by any means. You gotta remember that this is an early 3D game, but for what it is, the graphics can be considered really good for their time. And I like to think they hold up very well compared to other games released that same year.
The same goes for the music. It's one of the stronger elements of the game's presentation, even if it's not especially memorable on its own. It's super varied, usually jumping between several genres like industrial, techno, rock, and surprisingly a good number of pretty tense ambient tunes.
Not to sound like a dick or anything, but it's really slim pickings when it comes to finding positives for this. I like how despite playing the same, there's at least an attempt to try to differentiate the Turtles.
Really digging in the resin for that positive, huh? But yeah, there's at least some statistical differences between the brothers, with Donatello sporting the longest range, Michelangelo being the fastest, Raphael having the most attacking power, and Leonardo being balanced.
And honestly, that's about it. Of all the game's faults, the devs definitely understood the assignment with the presentation, and it obviously carries the game by a considerable margin, in convincing players that they're having more fun than they actually are.
Which brings us back to the boss fights. The first couple of fights are solid, not amazing, but just solid, and I wouldn't blame anyone if they were kinda looking forward to them, even if they're simple to take care of. But once you dig deeper into the game, they become the absolute worst part about the combat, changing it from dull to completely frustrating.
Bosses become just outright cheap around the middle of the game, all of them. Any attempt to actually land meaningful damage on them will instantly be met with the boss triggering a damage response. They'll gain complete invincibility to ignore any follow-up hits so they can throw out these attacks more safely. And when I say the moment, I mean the moment they take damage.
This forces players into hit and run tactics, but just make these battles last way longer than they're supposed to. You'll probably notice this when you encounter the Mystic Ninjas, with the worst being the Wind Ninja, who just spam invincible hops until it's allowed to throw out homing projectiles or a large multi-hitting cyclone. It's just not fun.
Adding on to the frustration is the real enemy, the camera. The game has a very hard time keeping track of 3 mobile characters at the same time. It will constantly spaz out on you. Bosses will repeatedly attack off camera like they know it works and they use it as a legit strategy. But it's not just the boss fights, as some areas have completely trashed camera angles that will hinder your ability to play comfortably. It's crazy how this game really falls apart at the midpoint.
We seriously had it with the game by the time we reached the end of the Notes from the Underground series of levels, which had you fighting the same 3 enemies over and over again. And if we were comparing the collection of bosses from each stage, this section will have the worst collection of them.
One boss will constantly teleport at the slightest hit of damage, the other will instantly counterattack with its only weak spot being its back, which it can still attack from by the way, and the final boss of the area will literally be one of the worst bosses I've ever seen. It will just stay in the air and disengage from us for what feels like minutes at a time, and will constantly spam this spinning flying attack. It's exhausting.
Luckily, this is the penultimate stage, so we're just going to skip right to the end and deal with the Shredder, and he ends up being one of the easiest bosses in the game.
He's fast, has a lot of health, good range, and does a good amount of damage in just one combo. But for some reason, he doesn't have the same annoying tactic of countering every 1 to 3 hits like every other boss, so you could just steamroll him and finish the game.
Hold up, let's put an asterisk on the word finish, because this game has a 100% final boss to surely wrap things up. How do you get 100% in a game like this? Well, I'm glad you asked. As we stated before, to completely finish the game, you'll have to make it up to and defeat Shredder 3 more times in order to unlock the final fight.
You do understand that we bitched about the game all the way up here, right?
Yup, I'll grab a save file.
So, when you honorably finish the game with the other 3 turtles, it is discovered that Shredder escaped to the heart of his headquarters, and their brothers follow only to find Orokusaki stripped away from his armor. And we like to make an obscene joke about it, but the turtles make multiple ones to that effect already.
What is this? Some kind of armor strip show?
What? You've gotten over your chrome fetish?
For some reason, taking off his armor buffs Saki up to ridiculous levels. And while the game gives the explanation to why this happened, it basically translates into, oh. The fight itself, how can I say this simply? Saki does so much damage and uses the stun in his combo so often that you're essentially throwing yourself at him until you win. And that's not some cynical comment about the boss battle. As soon as you enter the level, you're given full credits just to do that.
Oh right, we forgot to mention the super attack that's unlocked after getting all the turtles to the final part of the game, and that's Gimbu. It's a powerful full screen attack that will kill most basic enemies outright and will heavily damage bosses, and you only get to use 3 of these during each stage. Oh, excuse me, I use words like powerful and heavily damaged, but in actuality, it's a pathetic attack that only deals less than a quarter of damage to the boss. But it is a free hit, so I guess that's fair. So in the case of the super boss, you just use it up as soon as the fight starts, and then you just throw yourself at him. The final boss in this game pretty much results in a cartoon fight club.
After the fight is finished, the game does give players a pretty cool reward, in the form of original footage just made for the game for a fight that never happened in the show, where they use that crappy gimbal attack to seemingly finish him off for good. Of course, if you know the show, this attack wouldn't technically stop Saki at all, but I get it, that wasn't known by the Konami team at the time.
Not to make a reverse compliment sandwich here, but if this was the end game, why not just have the game tell an original story with custom animated footage? Or, you know, just use the 3D graphics. But I guess it's still cool that we got something like this. Let's go over what the rest of the game has to offer.
The campaign can be eventually played with Casey Jones and Master Splinter, but I mean, by that time, you've played through the game like 4 times. I guess if you really can't get enough of those foot tech ninjas, go for it, whatever, fuck you.
There's also a single player only challenge mode, where you choose a turtle to fight through a gauntlet of enemies, both normal and boss types. And I have to say, now that we're in a sterile environment, this mode really exposes how badly these guys are designed. Case in point.
Lastly, there's Versus Mode. Shockingly, the game's mechanics work pretty well as a one-on-one Power Stone-like game. I mean, it isn't polished enough to be that fully, but we can certainly see the vision. It's fun for a couple of matches.
So, was TMNT 2K3 any good? Honestly, kinda, sorta, in the same way eating an entire bag of candy for dinner is kinda good. The first couple of handfuls are awesome, then somewhere around the middle, your body starts sending warning signals directly to your brain.
That's really the best way to describe this game, because TMNT 2K3 absolutely nails the first impression. You boot it up and you got the 2003 Turtles in order of edgy comic book glory, the soundtrack's kicking in, the cutscenes from the show are playing, the combat initially feels deeper than expected, and all those in the know will see the Konami logo is sitting there making you think, well, they nailed it again.
Then the game just slowly starts to disintegrate in your hands the longer you play it. The co-op completely falls apart, the enemy encounters become repetitive, the bosses turn cheap, and the camera loses its goddamn mind. By the end of the game, it honestly feels less like you're fighting the Foot Clan and more like you're fighting the developers actively trying to stop you from having any kind of fun.
Despite all that, we can't fully hate it. Don't get us wrong, the game fucking sucks. but there's just enough charm here to understand why people remember this game so fondly. The presentation does a lot of the heavy lifting when you first start playing it, and it generally feels like you're about to experience the second coming of Turtles in Time.
Alright, that statement was mostly for dramatic effect. Even at its best, it would have never been that good, come on. Instead, what you actually get is probably the most blockbuster rental game we've covered so far. And I mean that in the most specific way possible. This is the type of game you rent on a Friday night as a kid. Play the first few stages with your friend or your brother, think it's the sickest thing ever made, then return it Sunday before the game has enough time to fully reveal the horrors lurking deep inside. Because honestly, that's probably the ideal way to experience this game. Get in, play the first 3 stages, and get the hell out.
But if you can stomach the second half of the game, or worse yet, actually think it's good, then you'll be in luck. The game actually does have a decent amount of replay value that will take some time to work through. You've got multiple character playthroughs, unlockable characters like Casey Jones and Master Splinter, challenge modes, and a surprisingly decent versus mode. But those modes are for the few people who made it that far and managed to keep their sanity.
But what do you think? Is TMNT 2K3 a nostalgia staple for you? Drop a comment and let us know. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see you next time on the Runback.
I just wanna ride it. As I set it free, I'm standing.